Auburn will start the season against Mercer, and Auburn's starting quarterback will be TJ Finley. Now, TJ Finley did finish the year as the starting quarterback for Auburn. Remember the former LSU transfer? Our guy Emory Hunt calls him Big Ponchatoula. And at times, like, you see the physical gifts, you see the skills, but I do not think that he was named by many Auburn fans or necessarily by even all of us in the summer as like, that is going to be TJ Finley's job. You know, there was competition there, and Zach Calzada had come in from Texas A&M. Then later in fall camp, we started to get the word that Zach Calzada might not have been as big of a factor in this quarterback battle, and TJ Finley gets announced as the starter. What are the expectations for TJ Finley? Bryan Harsin has been very impressed, he says, with his command of the offense and the way that I could write a Mad Lib for the quotes that come out from a head coach about a starting quarterback as it pertains to the intangibles and taking control and leadership in the locker room and stuff like that. But TJ Finley seems to have inspired confidence from his head coach. What do we make of the Finley announcement? What are the expectations for Auburn's offense with Finley at quarterback?
You know, I had somebody I trust tell me this was Zach Calzada's job to lose, and he did just that. They went out and got Zach Calzada to start. Now, he was not an accurate passer at Texas A&M. He has a huge arm. Like, I've seen this kid since he was a junior in high school. He has an arm cannon, but it doesn't always fire in the right spots. And even when he knows where he's going with the ball, you know, the ball placement is not always there. I'm not confident in this situation. I think you'll see TJ Finley, obviously, and I think we'll see a good amount of Wildcat style stuff with Robbie Ashford. I think Calzada was running third from what my guys were telling me. So, I've been anti-Auburn's offense all offseason. I don't think they're any good. I think the receivers they lost, do they have the worst receiving core in the SEC outside of Vanderbilt? I think so.
Hey, Vandy just put up 63 points, bro.
Yeah, easy.
That's true. Shout out Vandy late night. I don't. They're going to have to be really, really good at running the football, or Finley's going to have to take a big jump. But I don't think he did. I think Calzada just was bad.
I'm on Auburn over 6, so I'm going to be like Danny with Scott Frost here, and I'm just holding on. They're going to be fine. TJ Finley, he won the job. Zach Calzada did not lose the job. TJ Finley went in there, played great, stole it from him. Tigers going to be scoring 35 points a game this year. You'll see.
Tank Bigsby helps. Any quarterback's life is going to be easier based on the amount of attention and the amount of bodies and eyeballs that are going to have to be stuck on Tank Bigsby. So I don't think Auburn needs to have a super dynamic passing attack or overwhelm the opposition with talent on the perimeter to be able to accomplish what the projections would have with them being about a 6-win team. So if TJ Finley is the one that limits the mistakes and is the option that the coaching staff trusts the most to make the right decisions out there within the framework of the offense, sure. But I don't know if it inspired like overwhelming amounts of confidence, because ultimately I always thought that whoever was starting at Auburn, their two jobs were to, number one, not turn the ball over, and number two, give the ball to Tank Bigsby.
And number 3, avoid the coup.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, these are bad options. Let's be honest. Like, it probably was an ugly competition that just played out long enough. And you went with a guy that's probably most familiar with the system because he's played in it longer. And I wouldn't expect a lot out of it. But this, to Tom's point, when you have an attempted coup, guess what? It hurts. It hurts your chances of getting good players because they look at it as a disaster and they don't want any part of it, including your coaching staff, who doesn't want any part of it either. Changing over coordinators, it's a mess.
Also, shout out to Bryan Harsin. I don't know if you guys saw the tweet from him this weekend, but on game day, they ran the graphic about Bryan Harsin's status at Nebraska, and he just took a screenshot, tweeted it with like a shrug emoji.
That was great.
I mean, ultimately, I'm coming out of this whole experience with probably a higher thoughts on Bryan Harsin than I had going in, just because of the way that he has handled this at every turn. I'm in Mexico because my schedule said I'm going to Mexico and I'm not going to worry about all this right now. You guys figure this out. Did y'all listen? I've said many times that there is a beat that is like the athletic director carousel beat. You know, there are like media members, there are writers that are like all into being in with the admins, and it ain't me. So I can't speak with any like informed insider sourced opinion when it comes to athletic directors, their relationships with their university presidents, and all that turnover. But did y'all see that as the athletic director at Auburn gets ousted, then we start to see a bunch of other current and former athletic directors kind of like rush to a PR campaign to talk about how poorly he was treated, what a toxic situation that it was right there. And while we have even hinted at such, difficulties within the Auburn community and the boosters fighting for power, and even using the word coup here on this episode, did that sort of like trigger anything? Or were you surprised at all to see it get so, I mean, is petty even the right word? I mean, it just like,
didn't we say on this podcast that like we had heard that he had been told to find work a long time ago, and like we knew the contract was not going to be renewed? Like, this was not a secret. If you talk to anybody at Auburn's like, Alan Green's not getting another contract there. He was told to find work. I thought he was going to Notre Dame at one point, just from like whispers around. I don't think that actually happened. Not like as the AD, but in some capacity. So no, I thought it was a little bit. Look, the ADs are going to stick up for one another. They're going to take shots at Auburn. Alan Green made a power play, which I thought was kind of smart to do in terms of like actually grabbing the power, because you had warring factions of boosters who wanted to make different hires when they ousted Gus Malzahn. And he went and hired Bryan Harsin. And Bryan Harsin did not emphasize and build his staff around recruiting enough when he came in there. And Andy Staples made this point on Twitter as well. And he's like, what are you whining about? Like, the expectations of the job, and you hire a guy who's not up for it when it comes to recruiting. Like, they're not able to, like, they're not competitive on the recruiting space, or at least they weren't in his first year there based on who he hired. I think they've actually made some pretty good hires. Their back office staff got a lot better this year, but you didn't hire a guy that makes sense for that job, and you're going to have to fire him after this year.
All I'll say is, regardless of, like just AD sticking up for each other, the situation, I know Danny White wasn't at Tennessee when all the Tennessee was being Tennessee, but when the Tennessee athletic director's going on Twitter and dunking on your athletic department for being a dumpster fire, it's not a great sign.
Now, that was a family business. Kevin White came out.
They're all
too. They were like,
but I'm just saying, though, optics wise, Tennessee is now at a point where it can look at Auburn and say, what the hell are these guys doing? They're out of their minds.
Yeah, it was anyway, Bryan Harsin, you have hitched your future, at least here at the beginning, to TJ Finley as your quarterback at the offense. We will see how it goes. Again, the season starts for the Tigers against Mercer.